And sort of best known for what's up there. I turn off TVs for a living, and I love my job. And this is Jimmy, who I do workshops with around the world quite often.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm Jimmy Rogers. I guess my best known project is the LOL Shield. But a few years ago, Mitch talked me into quitting my job and basically hacking full-time, and I've been doing it full-time for 2 years and been having a fucking blast, traveling around the world, teaching workshops and all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, and if you ever do want, just as an aside, help in quitting a job you don't like, there's my contact information.
Yeah, it's absolutely doable to make a living doing what you love.
Oh, feedback. There we go.
Okay.
So, yeah, so me and Jimmy have been traveling around the world doing workshops pretty much on every continent except Africa and Australia. So we've taught well over...
Or Antarctica, I guess.
Oh yeah, no Antarctica.
Yeah.
We're working on that. So we've taught well over 30,000 people how to solder and make cool things with electronics. So we've learned a few things along the way, and that's what our talk is about, to share this information, because there aren't enough people going out in the world and doing workshops, and we need people to do workshops.
Yeah, it gets people involved and excited. You spread information, all kinds of stuff. I would like to point out, in this picture that you can't see very well, this is a 5-year-old girl that I'm teaching how to solder. So, you know, we don't limit by age of the workshops. Yeah, and kids are especially excited when you're giving them.
Kids of all ages.
Yeah.
So workshops, you know, what are they? Well, it's hands-on. That's the key. We need to do things with our hands, and it's really best if we can do that by forming a temporary community where people can get together and engage through expression through hands-on activity. And those are really the two key things. We, as humans on this planet, evolved over millions of years. Oops. Oh, interesting.
I'm trying to post. Yeah. You need to postpone it for more than 10 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's favorite operating system at play. So, yeah. So sorry about that. But we as humans on the planet evolved over millions of years to support one another in community. We would not have survived in the sometimes rather hostile environment if we didn't get together and cooperate and support one another. We don't have huge Tyrannosaurus rexes as muscles. We have big brains, for better and worse. So we can do things like make tools and share them. So people have been doing workshops on the planet for as long as we've been around, teaching other people the cool tools that we create. So just because we can buy whatever we want or need or manipulate it into thinking we want or need, doesn't mean that we still don't have this deep inner need to make and create or to have community, which is why all of us are here in person or for you at home. Yeah, community is really important, and workshops fulfill these two deep inner needs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So why would you want to give a workshop? As Mitch said, this is providing information to people on how you're making tools, how you're creating things, but it's a fantastic thing for your space, for yourself, just personal enrichment, and for helping your community grow and learn new things. So if you have a hackerspace or if you are part of a hackerspace, you have to have workshops. It's required. It should be probably in hackerspace law book or something like that. I don't know. But it's an amazing way of getting new people into the space and just basically pushing out all of the things that you love to do and getting new people excited, new people making things. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we go around doing workshops at hackerspaces, because it gets people involved in hackerspaces and excited about them who might not have known about it otherwise.
Absolutely. And it's also a fantastic way of funding your space, because a lot of hackerspaces, they have major problems like getting money. The space in Boston, we are currently, we've gone from a 2,000 square foot space to a 9,000 square foot space to a 25,000 square foot space to now a 38,000 square foot space in the Boston area. And we've primarily done that through people renting space within it, paying membership dues, but also the workshops. Like we have like a standard rate of like $10 an hour plus materials, 60-40 split between like the, the person teaching and the space. So yeah, it brings in a lot of money, and that's allowed us to now have full-time people. That's allowed us to have, that are paid a salary to work full-time at our hackerspace.
Yeah, so it's a model that's worked really well.
Exactly.
And it can work really well for hackerspaces everywhere, and this is another reason why we need more people going around doing good workshops. So I'm really happy to see this room full of people who are interested in how to give good workshops, because as we give workshops, other people get the bug, and we do recruit. So I hope all of you will go out there and recruit more. So what do you do a workshop on? What topic? Well, obviously it's something that you love. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you love something, chances are there's a lot of other people that want to learn about it because they'll probably love it too. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even matter what it is. So to give a good workshop, there's a bunch of things that need to come together. First of all, it's got to be a topic that you love. You don't have to be an expert in it either. You can learn a lot by learning enough to give a workshop. But if you love it, you'll have enough inside of you to do whatever it takes to learn enough to give your workshop. That's what interest is for. It's best if the workshop does create that temporary community that I spoke of earlier. If people come together and they feel that sense of community, which unfortunately is so lacking in our poor world as it stands today, they go away feeling way better, and that will aid to your workshops being more successful in the future, as well as the one you just gave. Also, if you love something, share your enthusiasm about it. That's what makes it work. That enthusiasm is incredibly contagious. Also, it makes it really fun for people to get together. As you're wandering around just at camp here, you probably have noticed that you're having fun. That's because there's community, there's enthusiasm. We all love sharing what we love, and people love sharing it with you. So that's what makes it all work.
Yep, absolutely. And there's just like a lot of personal enrichment that you get out of it. I mean, I don't know, teaching is really powerful. Like when I pointed out that little 5-year-old girl, like seeing her excited with her blinking kid at the end is just, I don't know. Like,
and she'd never made anything before.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty amazing, so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but point out that last one.
Oh, which one? Oh, yes, failure. We're gonna go over this a couple of times, but failure is important. You shouldn't be scared of it. It's going to happen.
You should seek it out.
Yeah, it's okay. Fail, learn from it, change things, and then do it again. Change the things that didn't work at all. And
yeah, that's how we all learn. We
exactly.
learn through failure, continual failure.
Yep, and
fail early, fail often.
Yep, as you might fail at some levels on running the workshop, people within your workshop are going to fail at completing the task, but it's about encouragement and keeping things going. We'll go over it a little bit later, yeah.
We'll go over it.
But yeah, so there's a lot of different teaching styles that you can do for workshops. I mean, we mostly do hardware-based things, but this works, it's just as applicable for doing like learn to program in Python, which is something that we've had at our hackerspace as well. But, as long as you are enthusiastic and you actively love what you're teaching, a lot of that will get across on its own. But there's different ways of like teaching groups of people.
And I just point out that there's no right way of doing it.
Absolutely.
So that top line there, your own style is the best style.
Yep. the one that you're going to be comfortable with, and you're going to be able to convey your information and get people to complete it. So generally what we do when we're together is we run kind of an open soldering workshop where we just have a lot of different kits. We go over like the basics of soldering, a little electronics lesson, and then everyone makes different kits. And pretty much everyone's got a laptop or a phone that they can pull up the instructions on, and most of the kits are ours, so we can help people out with them. But like those are kind of open-ended workshops, and you need a number of people to run those. You have to have at least 1 or 2 people to hop around. At hacker conferences, it's a little bit easier because I find that hackers will just be like, no, I got it. You know, so like they go off and do their own thing. So you can have fewer volunteers running a larger group of people because it's the 2 of us and like, what, 70 soldering irons?
Yeah, it's no problem.
Yeah, so like that's fine for us to cover that in this situation. In other situations, like at a maker fair where people aren't as enthusiastic about learning that type of thing, we'll have like 24 volunteers helping out with that number of soldering irons.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to prep people beforehand. Other times they can just come in and jump in, depending on how much they know, or if you've worked with them before, or if they know, your scene. But you can group people together who are on a similar skill level, or group people together that are working on the same thing if you have a choice of different things for people to actually have hands-on experience with.
Because I'll oftentimes, like, there's an interesting thing that happens whenever you group people together. And you start teaching, they actually start teaching themselves. So in that way, I'm able to run like a workshop with like 22 people by myself, like doing circuit bending and things like that, because I go over the basic concepts, what people are looking for, and then as people explore and find those points while they're building things, it continues to grow and grow and grow. And then questions pop up organically. So that's sort of like a workshop that I run that I let it go on its own flow. And other times whenever you have like a specific kit or hardware or something like that, it's really useful to have workshops, especially if you are designing an open source hardware kit. Run a workshop. It will show you where people are having trouble. It will do all kinds of stuff. It's really, really informative to have people building your own kit, something that you've made in front of you.
Yeah, and as far as teaching style goes, you can let the group choose its own direction. There's been a lot of research in education that show if you just put stuff down and then step out of the way, people teach themselves how to do it. And that's definitely one approach. Another one is to have everything all laid out with step by step by step and have people go through it so that they can know what to do next time. Or you can have a mix of all of that. It's whatever you feel comfortable with the group.
And some of my earliest workshops at the Hackerspace before I even, 5 years ago, before I really had any kind of idea of electronics, it was like, hey, I want to make this thing. Who all wants to pitch in? We'll buy like the parts to build like a dozen of these things, and we'll just get together on a Saturday and we'll build it together. And that kind of combination group teaching thing works really well as well. And I learned pretty much all of my electronics knowledge through this alternative form of education. I'm a college dropout. I didn't do well in the university system. But hackerspaces and these styles of hands-on workshops, I learned significant amounts of like fundamental electronics.
And the result we see today.
Exactly.
So one thing that can make things very uncomfortable for you giving a workshop is getting this part wrong, figuring out the money. So we do happen to live on a planet where things cost money. And that is not necessarily a problem as far as giving workshops go. The other problems are another workshop, or another talk rather. So, but you have to make it work with money in a number of directions. It has to work for you. It has to work for the participants. It has to work for the place you have it if they're going to charge you money. So you have to give a price. It's like any retail. And I learned a lot about that selling TV Be Gone the hard way. I do not have an MBA. So if you have a retail product, whether it's a workshop or whatever, even if your end goal isn't money, which mine isn't, you do have to have a price that's appropriate. If it's too low, people might not find value in it, and they might even not show up, even though they want to. If you charge just a little, maybe people are even more encouraged to come than if you charge nothing. If you charge too much, obviously, only rich people can come with time. And that might be okay, but that might not be the entire audience you want to do your workshop for. Also, it's got to be affordable for you. If you're a trust account kid and just want to blow through money, you can have very expensive workshops for free and everyone can come. But if you're like most people on the planet, you have to have it within your budget because you're going to be fronting a bunch of money to give the workshop and be reimbursed, hopefully, by the people who come and enjoy taking your workshop. So how much do you charge for a workshop? Well, that feeds into what I was just saying. I like giving workshops for free and then get reimbursed for the materials that I bought to prepare for the workshop. That's what works best for me. But there are very different ways of making it all work. And at Noisebridge, the hackerspace I co-founded, everything there is free. Not by a rule, we only have one rule, which is be excellent to one another, but because that's just the tradition there. And people who give workshops just do it because they love it. And that makes it high quality workshops because people are only giving workshops on things they love. At Artisans Asylum, where Jimmy co-founded, it works a little bit differently.
Yeah, so, I mean, cost is extremely important. I try to get this across to a lot of people who are getting into open hardware and other things like that. You have to make your margins on your costs, because if you only charge like 10% over what you purchase, then suddenly you need to get something expedited, like shipped to you right away. That costs an extra $100, and now you're in the negative. And now you're losing money by teaching this workshop. And that's not a sustainable thing. And that's the point, is like we're trying to get this across of like, to get you to continue teaching workshops, you're gonna have to charge money for it. And what really works for us at Artisans is we have just a base rate of $10 per hour just for instruction. And what that allows us to do is get in really quality instructors and pay people who want to try and make a living doing workshops. I also teach a lot of my workshops for free, like Mitch. But we're selling our kits, our open hardware kits, which we are making a margin on. So we are making money from the hardware, but we're not really necessarily making money for our time. It's sort of like
let me just butt in there. So we buy kits by the hundreds, and then we charge people thousands as it, and or by the millions of LEDs.
Yeah, I just before I got here, I had 150,000 LEDs show up at my door, and we had to package it up. And it was like around almost 1,000 mole shield kits got built before I left for camp. But yeah, it's just...
Yeah, and so that's preparing, which is the next slide, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we charge what it would cost an individual to buy one kit of parts by themselves. So that way everyone's happy, and then with the margin that we make, that helps us give the next workshop.
Exactly. It pays for travel. Traveling's expensive. And, you know, like... your space, it's going to cost money for your space. You also need to like make sure that you've built in costs for the workshop for tools that you might have to buy. So an interesting class that we had was a silk screening class at the asylum, and we wanted a 4-press silk screen. And it was like a $2,000 setup that we wanted to get, like proper one. And the person teaching the 6-week class that was $300, including material fees, he basically taught it for free just to get access to the machine, and so we could have the machine. So that bought our machine, and now we have continuous ongoing silk screening classes that continue to generate money. And same thing for when we needed the electronics lab. We just had everybody bring in as many soldering irons as they could. We had like some like TV Begun and like various other like kits, like this week it's this week it's this. And you know, we charged a little bit extra, but like slowly we built up. Now we've got 24 really nice quality soldering irons by building up that way. And like that's what building in extra costs for your workshops can do for you and for your space. And if you don't want to make money, that's fine. Give it to your hacker space. But don't have the workshop like under what it costs you, because then the next time somebody else wants to teach that workshop, they may not be in a financial situation that they can do that. So it's okay. Like our most expensive class at the asylum was a $1,200 kayak class. But it was like 8 weeks long, and then you actually built the entire frame of the kayak, did the resin impregnation of the skin, like skinned the kayak and everything, and then they went and went down the Charles River with the like 3 kayaks they got built. I think like 5 total because the instructor built 2. But you know, it's okay when people see that this is something that would cost me $3,000 to buy, and I'm building it for half the cost of the workshop, they're okay spending that money on it. So don't be scared if your workshop ends up costing $200-300. If that's the cost, that's the cost. And if people are interested, they will take the class. So, yeah.
And if they're not, they won't, and you'll learn
Exactly.
from your experience.
Yep.
So, so in order to give a workshop, you've got to organize beforehand. And this is a thing that you have to learn through experience for whatever your workshop is. That's a photo.
Experience pain and failure.
Experience pain and failure and failure and failure.
Yep.
But the thing is not failure to the point of destruction, but just learning from your mistakes and then making it better next time. That picture, by the way, I put in the word organize on Google, and up came this thing full of Legos from Evil Mad Scientist. I thought that was a cool photo. Anyways, you do need to organize beforehand, and there's a lot of things to think about when you do a workshop that requires a lot of electronic parts like we do. You need to plan in advance. So, for instance, Jimmy planned in advance, and he got it down so it perfectly, the last parts, he came here today.
Yeah, they'll be here for the workshop tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I did that entirely because I'm professional and didn't all, order my parts the last minute from a different country and have it shipped here and almost not make it.
Yeah. So things like this will happen. You can't plan for everything, but we do the best we can. And another plan in advance is that we finished this talk about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, about.
So plan in advance. It's good. So also a part of planning in advance, as well as getting all the parts to make your kits, if that's what you're going to do in time for the workshop, is having a venue to have it in. A lot of places need really far in advance planning in order to book a room.
Yep.
Some places, like a hackerspace, they can just go, oh yeah, we're kind of free at one this afternoon. Or the hardware hacking tent, we have workshops ongoing. If there's an empty space, anyone can just jump in and do it. But others take long in advance. You also have to make sure that you have all the tools you'll need, and that might take some ordering time and shipping time.
On the venue thing, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing is totally okay with the venue, because I have butted heads with a lot of people about soldering irons, and they're like, oh no, it's going to cause a fire. It's like, no, it's not possible for this thing to actually cause a fire, and so you have to sometimes talk to the people about it.
Yeah, and give time for arguing back and forth, because soldering is 200 degrees C, and that is not hot enough to even cause smoldering.
Yeah, but it's just are you going to be creating fumes? Are you going to be creating wood shavings or sawdust or things like that? Or are you doing gas-based welding, things like that, where you need a well-ventilated area? You really need to think about if there's legitimate dangers for running it. I mean, in most cases it's not too bad, but it's doing gas-style welding in an enclosed space is not a good idea in general.
So if you don't plan in advance, you don't have what you need for your workshop, the workshop's not going to work. If you don't have a venue that's appropriate, your workshop's not going to work. If you don't have the tools you need for everyone to do their thing, it's not going to work. Also, what is really, really important is publicity. If you have an incredible workshop, everything's all set up, everything's set to go, but hardly anyone shows up, not going to be so fun for everybody. Nope. So getting the word out is really, really important. And how do you get the word out? Well, we have the internets. We also have hackerspaces. We have so many ways available to us as hackers in our modern world to get the word out. We can also make posters. We can make stickers. We even have stamps we can have for our brand new hackerspace passports.
Yeah, we've actually had a pretty good luck with the traditional media, like newspapers and TV crews. We'll put out a press release for an event that we're doing. And, one of our events was a pumpkin carving, and the Fox News van showed up, and one of our artists jumps up on this table and he starts chainsawing into a pumpkin, and they were falling out of the van trying to film him doing this. So the traditional media is really hungry for these stories. So once they realize oh, holy crap, your space is doing cool shit, every time you put out a press release, they're going to send a reporter and a photographer, and you're going to get a story out of it, and then that leads to more people, more publicity, more workshops, and our mailing list keeps growing and growing and growing because of that. Also, I want to go over the tools thing. You need to have enough tools, because nothing is more frustrating than when you've got like 20 people all waiting on one tool and it takes 10 minutes for each person to use it. People aren't going to finish the workshop. They're going to leave frustrated, or like some people just won't come back. And so if you have any tool that you know that people are going to need to use it for a continuous period of time, you need multiples of that. And try and realistically like think of how long a person might need. And for determining the length, it's basically like however long it took you to make the thing, double that, and then double it again. Because if it takes you like an hour to make this thing, that's going to be a significantly long workshop. Like I can put together like one of the kits that we have in like 5 to 10 minutes, but we still say like 45 minutes to an hour for the workshop, because just going over all the things, leaving a little bit of extra room. And even some of my workshops that are like 2 hours, there's still people that are straggling. You also need to make sure that the space that you're in is going to be okay with like extra time. So...
Or maybe they are, or maybe they aren't.
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
to plan for that.
Yeah, so you need to like, if they're like, no, you got to be out of here at 3 o'clock, and people aren't even finished at 2:55, like you're going to have to start packing everything up. So I mean, like, yeah, just logistics.
Yeah, so after you go through it, it's pretty obvious.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of things. So you plan for the workshop, and everything's all set, and there's some last-minute things that you forgot, and you have to scramble and go to some store to buy sponges because there aren't enough to clean soldering iron tips or something like that.
Not that we've ever had to do that before.
Maybe a couple times.
Yeah.
So you've got everything ready. You've got the day of the workshop, and so there's a bunch of things that can go wrong here that are good to be aware of. So if you're in a venue that you don't have control over, you have to be sure that the person who has the key is there. So I like calling them beforehand and saying, hey, I have in my calendar that you'll be there at 9 in the morning. Sorry about calling so early. And you also, if you have any volunteers that have agreed to show up, making sure they're alerted to the fact as well. And then you need plenty of time once you get in the venue to set up. It always takes longer than you think it should.
Yeah, and hopefully like you have volunteers. Also sometimes you can ask like people participating in the workshop to show up early and help set up, and people are totally fine for that. Like especially if you have a cool space, people are going to want to hang out anyways. It's, I don't know, we just pick up volunteers because like they get excited about our enthusiasm, and then they get excited, and then
it is contagious.
It totally is, and for the most part, people are respectful.
Hardly ever anyone isn't.
Yeah.
Especially at Noisebridge, where we have one rule. So be excellent to each other, and I hope you all follow that rule here too. But one thing I want to point out is this last thing. Try to give yourself a little breathing space before the workshop starts, because it's the last time you'll have a chance for a while. Mm-hmm. So one thing, when the workshop does begin, people start showing up. Some show up early. Different countries have different kind of customs on what it means to be on time or not. People with different family backgrounds also have different ideas of this. Me with a father who is always like, come on, we're going to be late. There's only 90 minutes left before we have to get in the car. I know how to be punctual. Other people, not so much. Also, there's hacker time. If you say 2 o'clock, that probably means people will start filtering at 2:15 at a hackerspace or a hacker conference.
I think hackers take the 2 o'clock as what time they should start going towards the event.
Or just one more email. So once you get everyone there, once people start filtering in, and it's maybe 2:15, whatever, if the starting time was 2, you start the workshop, but don't start in with things that are absolutely mandatory for every single person to know before they actually start doing the hands-on, because then you'll have to, a new person in, you'll have to start over and bring them up to speed while everyone is bored. And then again and again. So you can give an outline after everyone is there that wants to be there.
Yeah, and generally if your workshop is very, very time sensitive, like you only have these 2 hours and everyone needs to be there, if you let everyone who's going to be participating in the workshop know in advance, they're usually pretty good about being on time. It's like, no, absolutely, you have to be here right then. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then once you start, again, you share your enthusiasm. So you lay out what the workshop is about, you get people everything they need to start, and maybe you give a little demo of what they're going to be doing, and then they're off. So the thing is, though, there might only be you, or you and one other person, or maybe a handful of people, but encourage people to help each other. People love helping one another. That's part of what's in our DNA again. It's part of community. It's part of what makes community happen. When people are helping one another, everyone is engaged, everyone is enthusiastic, and people love it. So encourage people to help one another. Also encourage people to ask questions if they're unsure.
Yep.
Like with the workshops we do, it's soldering. Soldering is easy. And if you go to any of my workshops or our workshops, that phrase will be repeated again and again. It is easy, but unsoldering takes a lot of practice. And it's frustrating to get that practice, but again, it's okay to make mistakes.
Yep.
It's totally okay. Any mistake people can make, you as the workshop facilitator can fix the mistake. But if they want to avoid that particular frustration, they can ask questions before doing something that will require, in our case, unsoldering.
Yeah, this sort of like goes in with the failure thing, because for the circuit bending class that I teach, like I actually plan for people to make the mistakes. I don't correct them before it happens. And that way, when it does happen, I, have the whole group say like, okay, so here's what happens, and here's how you fix it. Because somebody else is also going to make that mistake. So yeah, I mean, like, part of the continuing to teach, like, you're going to learn those things as you continue to do those workshops. And, the circuit bending, I let it be self-directed because I've taught it so many times, and I can reasonably expect, like, what people are going to do, how to find it. But, yeah, like, for the desoldering things, like, show everyone, like, how that happens. And,
yeah, it's an opportunity.
So, yep, absolutely.
So, and then as you're going, just walk around. It's like to the next person, hey, how's it going? Some people want to do it on their own, and if you go in there and say, hey, how's it doing, and get butt in, they're going to be upset. Other people, they would prefer you, so kind of feel that out. But what I usually do is just go around and ask how it's going, and then see if they're wanting me to help more or not. And then sometimes it's just me and a lot of people, so if I'm helping someone, I'm always saying, hey, remember, it's just me. If you've got a question, I'll be around soon. Just encourage people to keep going or ask their neighbors for help, but to let people know continually that I'm not abandoning them.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, some people require hand-holding, and that's okay. Normally, it's not too many people. I did teach a class with a bunch of ADHD kids, or at least I was warned that they were, and out of like the 12 kids, I did actually manage to get 8 kids to finish the project, which the organizers were amazed. But what I found was, like, basically once you push the parents away, and like you let the kids do what they wanted to do, they just went on, they did it, and like they were teaching each other, and they had a blast. And like the 4 kids who like required individual instructions, who like were legitimately ADHD, like they ended up just like wandering off because I couldn't help them. But yeah, I mean, it was just
yeah, and I don't know, I've done ADHD too. The ADHD kids can be amazing. Once you get them engaged, they just cruise. It's awesome. Yeah, anyways, just keep doing the rounds until everyone's done, and if it's a venue that lets you go over, then and you're fine with it, you can just let people go at their own pace until everyone's done. And then, of course, you've got to clean up, which takes some time too. And if the venue is really persnickety, you must be out, then you've got to plan for that too.
And usually people in the workshop will help you clean up as well. So.
Oh yeah, ask people to help, because otherwise you're stuck there exhausted and needing to clean up.
Yeah,
but people love helping.
Yeah, if it takes you like an hour and a half to set up, like 10 people can tear that down in 15 minutes.
So we're going to stress this one again.
Yep.
So this is kind of hokey, but we found it this morning on the interwebs. And it's really important to fail. It really is important. In
It's
our modern
okay.
culture,
It's okay.
we're taught it's not okay,
Yeah.
and that you're a failure, meaning that you suck. And the thing is, we all inside, in some level, deeply believe that. You know, growing up geeks, you know, it's not so bad growing up geek today if you're a little kid, because, you know, look at all the amazingly cool shit we've brought into the world. And everyone knows that now.
And hopefully soon off the world.
Off the world, into space, hack around the moon. So, you know, when we were growing up, and especially me, older than most of you here, it was not okay to be a geek, and we have insecurities. But we've got to live with our insecurities, and if we can reinforce over and over again that it is okay to fail because it's part of life, we learn from our mistakes, we learn from what seems to be failures, but they become opportunities for learning amazing things that bring us into being fully who we are.
Absolutely. And hacker spaces are wonderfully forgiving for these types of things, especially if you're like just learning how to teach a workshop. Like, you know, if you don't know something, it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know how this works. Let's look it up. Let's go to the internet or whatever. And if you've not taught a workshop before, you're going to get a lot of this stuff wrong, like the timing and all of these things. Like, it's just...
And it's okay.
It's okay. Continue to learn from that. Continue to build from it. Hopefully you've got some kind of repository, like a wiki, that you can put the additional information, because you want other people teaching the workshops. And, yeah. So.
Yeah, and then when you do your workshop, everyone feels great.
Yep.
Because everyone's accomplished something. So these are just 3 kind of random pictures I picked from my huge pile of pictures of people who finished their projects. And they're happy. And actually that kid in the middle is ADHD kid. She was one of the people I was told would be a problem. She was not a problem. The problem was people telling her she's a problem.
Exactly. It's the parents.
Yeah, so she made this mini POV, and she spelled out her nickname, which is Princess, and spelled it for my camera. And she's totally happy. And then here's someone from the last camp in 2007 making a brain machine, and someone at the Maker Faire in Japan. People are happy. They have a deep sense of accomplishment. You have a deep sense of accomplishment because you've helped people do that, and you've accomplished your workshop. People have incredible confidence after doing this, even if they've never had that sense before. They have it now. They have something cool that they made with their own hands that they can bring home and show their friends. And, you know, this means a lot to people. It's really amazing that you can help bring that to people.
Yeah, and even if it's like a software-based thing, like if you're teaching like a coding project, give people like goals that they can build, you know, and then that way, just having something that you can show off is really significant. And I've seen like the workshops where people leave with a completed project, they're more likely to return, they're more likely to continue doing this stuff, and sometimes they turn into very active members of the community that then end up teaching you things. Because that's the thing is like, you know, what's so fantastic about hackerspaces is, you know, things that I was not previously interested in, I get interested in. And we start trading, and all. Next thing you know, it's like you found a new thing that you love to do, and it's wonderful. And then you already have that community of people doing it. So, you know, it's just every aspect of this is a win, and it should be done.
Yeah, and if you did it right, including the money, then you have enough money to do another workshop.
Exactly.
And so it continues, and hopefully you've given the bug to other people so they can go around and do other workshops. So like in my own case, in Jimmy's case, we teach people to solder and make cool things with electronics. There aren't enough people in our planet doing this. I've created a comic book, Soldering is Easy. If you search online for solder comic, it will come up. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of downloads, and in just about every language, Russian and Greek and some weird African language I can't remember the name of, and even in Morse code, oddly enough.
Is it in Klingon yet?
It's not in Klingon yet.
Yeah, we need it in Klingon.
So, but it has to be more people going around teaching. There's only one of me, one of Jimmy, and Fabienne back there doing hardware hacking workshops. There's so few of us, and so I want to encourage more people to go out and do that particular kind of workshop, because people are hungry for community, they're hungry for creative expression, and workshops fulfill those needs.
Absolutely. I mean, like, we've funded significant portions of our space on welding classes, Like everybody wants to learn how to weld because it's really fucking awesome to take 2 pieces of metal and declare this is 1 piece of metal. So
and including welding for girls.
Yeah, we have welding for women, metalworking for women classes, so like metal forming and shaping, and we have that every like 6 to 8 weeks or so, and it's really nice.
Cool. So we have a hardware hacking tent.
Mm-hmm.
I also hear that there's a place called Mojave, which I've looked for and failed to find. So if anyone can point me that direction, that'd be cool. It's the next shelter?
It's the shelter which says fire safety on it.
The shelter that says fire safety. So anyways, there's hardware hacking going on in Mojave with workshops. Mm-hmm. The huge hardware hacking tent over this way next to the weird, cool red tent with points all over it at Hack Square.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way. And
Yep.
it's the biggest white tent in all of camp, and it's full of soldering irons waiting for you to hold and learn to solder if you haven't, or continue to solder if you have.
This is the website right there.
Workshops
Yeah.
all day today, and all day tonight, and all day tomorrow, and all night tomorrow, all day, every day, until camp ends. So we have specific workshops going on, including one that I have to go prepare for after this, which is Arduino for total newbies. And you are all invited, and grab other people. Let's hack hardware.
And tomorrow's like all audio stuff, right?
Yeah, and then Jimmy's going to do a didgeridoo workshop. If any of you were.
So this is one I actually made at camp because there's no way I'm going to like transport this. But yeah, so I'll be going over like how to make didgeridoos, how to play them.
There's going to be a Geiger count, make your own Geiger counter workshop.
Yep.
A 3D projector workshop, surface mounting soldering for more
circuit
advanced.
bending.
And how to set up a ghetto DJ station.
Yep.
Lots and lots of cool workshops that are all right here.
Yep. And yeah, it's just basically an ongoing hack-a-thon. I don't know.
So, anyways, that's enough rambling for now. We've got 15 minutes for Q&A.
Q&A, exactly. So, if you have a question, I would ask you to please come up here because we only have one mic. There was one question. Okay, you're close enough.
I would like to know how you help people not to feel bad if they make mistakes because they are normally used to feel bad. Okay.
Yeah, it's basically like encourage them. And what I tell them, it's like, yeah, I'm really good at fixing this because I've made this mistake so often. So it's like, you don't point out, say, like, how could you do that? It's like, oh, no, it's no problem. It's okay, we can fix this. And even if it's not fixable, if it is like those are the only mistakes that I will try and stop people. If like they're gonna do like permanent damage to whatever it is, I'll either give them a strong warning, like, you may possibly break this thing permanently. In which case, if you have a workshop like that, you need extra parts anyways, because people are gonna do that. But, it's just encouraging people and saying that it's okay that this mistake happened. I do this all the time. And it's the truth. That's the other part, is like I've gotten really good at desoldering and scraping the solder mask off of traces because I ripped the pad off the board. And like I've even had to drill into like the solder blobs, like the giant chips, just to like get to another trace and things like that to fix it. So it's just
reiterating that we've made mistakes.
Exactly.
That's how we got to where we are. But that's really important. I'm glad you asked that, because we're all trained to feel bad about making a mistake because now we're a failure.
Yep.
But we have to encourage each other to make mistakes and then show people what we learned to do it, and then let people know that if you make this mistake enough, you'll come up with your own way.
Exactly. And also, like, that is the strongest form of learning, is that negative kind of reinforcement. It's just like, I did this thing and I failed, and then you get down. But then when you get past that barrier, like once you've made the thing actually work, after you've banged your head against it for like 2-3 hours, you just get like this sense of elation, and you learn it permanently. It's in there. Like when you learn from that failure, success, it's in there. Like you don't have to learn it again. And then you can teach other people and show them. So, I mean,
Yeah, and if
Yeah,
you do it
just-
enough times, it becomes less important. And also, some of the failures become new techniques for incredible successes later that are totally unintentional.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, just tell them that it's okay, encourage them, help them fix it if they need it, or show them where they can get the stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have any other questions?
Another question?
Comments? Experience? Any
Ah,
internet?
yeah. We have a question from the internet.
As the mic goes there.
There's a comment from the internet. Sven G noted we are scheduling a workshop with Mitch here at EN Berlin for next week for people who cannot make it to the camp. Is that correct?
I guess it is now.
Yeah. we
Thank you,
briefed
Sven.
it.
And he said it's probably on August the 18th.
Okay, great. Yeah, because we talked about doing a workshop for people who couldn't come to camp in Berlin. And it's
Yeah.
at a place called In Berlin, one of the early internet service providers in Germany.
Yeah, and the same guy asked me whether Jimmy has mentioned that he's also doing a workshop on bending pipes to make didgeridoos.
Yeah, yes. And we'll probably do another one of those workshops in Berlin as well for people who can't make it here. So yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, all the workshops that we're doing here are on the wiki. The times are kind of forming.
Yeah, and they're all free instruction and material reimbursement.
Yep.
So,
Is there a good child-sized soldering iron, or do you just use the same ones everyone else is using?
It's
yeah,
just-
the same
yeah,
ones.
same ones.
And kids, we've taught kids as young as 3.5. It's no problem for a particularly geeky kid who's 3.5 years old to learn to solder. But 8 on up, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Everyone can learn to solder at age 8 on up.
Yeah, most of the time when teaching kids, like I have to correct the parents because they have a tendency to try and hand the soldering iron to kids, and I have to actually like put it in the soldering irons, and I've smacked people's hands before and like strongly told them, well, not
So
literally.
it's kind of
smack,
like
but,
the
yeah.
parent is like, no, you're doing it. And I
Exactly.
usually do this.
Yep,
And then
exactly.
show the kid what to happen, and that's
Yep.
the first time in their life that they're untethered from their parent.
Yeah,
They feel great.
I've had to ask parents to leave workshops before, but like that picture of the little 5-year-old girl, like she was really scared of the soldering iron.
She was so cute.
Yeah, she was. So initially, I was holding both the solder and the iron, and I did like a couple of solder joints to show her how easy it was. And then I asked her to help me. I was like, "Can you just do the solder?" And so then she started doing the solder, and then I put the iron in the stand. I was like, "Can you help me hold the soldering iron?" So I held it in the back, and then she was holding it kind of in the front. I was like, "See, feel it. It's not hot. It's warm here on the handle. Just don't touch the metal." And so then she started holding it, and at some point I let go. And she sat there and soldered like 4 or 5 connections. And then like she realized that I had let go, and she just looked at me and then just smiled. And then from that point forward, I couldn't touch the soldering iron. Only she could solder. And so it was pretty fantastic. Like she had a hard time clipping, so I would help her with the clipping because she had to use like both of her hands to clip the leads. But then when she finished, like she ran over to her mom, and she was just like so happy. And I helped her like do a little program for the little heart and everything, and it was totally a blast. But so sometimes kids you have to work with them a little bit slower, but they eventually get it. Even younger kids, and honestly, like soldering's like not really super dangerous and stuff like that. Like we've not had too many injuries.
And you can't hurt yourself bad.
No,
when you burn yourself, you let go.
Yeah, most of the time I've seen like people get burned, it's because the parents are trying to hand the kids the soldering iron, and then the kid reaches around the parents' hands and then touches the metal, and then the parents are at fault. And like just no, let the kid grab the soldering iron out of the stand, things like that. So yeah.
So any other questions? There we go.
Yeah, you obviously do quite a lot of workshops, and I've been wondering about the gender issues, wondering about male-dominated groups or female-dominated groups or mixed groups. Are there any differences in the group dynamics and all? What's your experience there?
Well, the hacker, I think the problem with gender in the planet as we see it today is because there's been a gender imbalance in the past, and that's what keeps it going in the present, which will keep it going in the future. but it's becoming, fortunately, less important. There's nothing particular in a human brain for a girl that says, you cannot solder, or you can't do something mechanical or electrical, and there's nothing inherent in a boy brain that says you can't sew. And at Noisebridge, we probably have about 40% female and 60% male, and we even have some percentage of in-betweens. It's really not so much an issue, and what we see is that when people come together in whatever workshop or at a hackerspace or at a hacker conference, people are sharing enthusiastically what they love, and people are enthusiastically eating it up. People are learning that, wow, you know, this sewing shit is really cool for the boys, and for the girls it's like, wow, you know, I can do this hardware, when they never even thought of it before because they were taught girls don't do that or boys don't do that. MIT is now half and half male-female. One of the biggest engineering schools.
Yes, and at Artisans, we actually had a survey not too long ago, and for the first time we put gender on the survey, and we had like male, female, other, you know, and so we ended up actually having, it was like 44 male, 44 female, and 2 other that were listed on that, and it was pretty fantastic. So we've got legitimately a 50-50 split at Artisans Asylum, and it was because it started with the 2 main founders who donated the most tools and like really got the space going with their time and everything. One was a professional costume designer, so like that's what she did for a living, was design costumes and sell them and make them for like stuff. So she had her industrial sewing equipment, and she was in there constantly doing those things, teaching those classes. And then he was doing the machining and the other types of stuff. And so the interesting thing about our survey was that some of the stuff was like traditional gender role and what you would expect. Like the electronics area was overwhelmingly dominated by men, and the craft area with like sewing and things like that was overwhelmingly dominated by women. I think it was like 80-20 split in both cases. It was like equal. But our woodworking and metalworking were dead even. Like they were 50-50 in metal and wood, and like a lot of the other different situations. Something else that's helped out a lot is we've had like metalworking for women, and we've had a couple of like classes specifically for women that are non-traditional classes, and so we don't just cater to hackers. Like our Artisans Asylum is like, you know, we're kind of going out to the general public, so that's really brought in like a lot of women to the classes who would previously have been scared that it was a male-dominated kind of place, and then they come there and they just see that's simply not true. And
oh yeah,
right,
definitely.
Yeah.
You know, the main thing is, from my perspective, anyways, I want everyone to feel welcome in everything I'm involved with, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, or blah 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 blah.
Yep.
Everyone should feel welcome. I don't want to alienate everyone. It doesn't mean that it's for everyone, but I want everyone to feel welcome to check it out. And Noisebridge, since I was one of the co-founders, I wanted Noisebridge to be a place where everyone felt welcome to come and check us out. And again, it doesn't mean Noisebridge is for everyone, but it's a place for anyone to feel comfortable checking out. And as a result, it's an incredibly diverse place. And people do feel comfortable there.
yeah, and for Fabienne's point of like having women teach the workshops, on our site we actually have profiles and bios of like all of the instructors, like when they're giving the classes, like what they've done, like how that's relevant to the class that they're teaching and things like that. So people before they take the workshop can see who's teaching it, what's going on, and things like that. And yeah, I mean, like it's we've got like a really healthy ecosystem going on there, and there's a lot of cross-pollination that's now happening because we have such a wide variety of tools and spaces, and such a massive amount of space that now you have like 3, 4, and 5 people getting together to work on like one very complex project with like cross-disciplinary things, like lots of different problems to solve. So, and it's sort of like almost gender has not been an issue at all at our space because I guess it started that way. It started with that warm, welcoming type of atmosphere, and that's the culture that we started with, and that's the culture that continues to persist. And so,
yeah, that's definitely a good point. When you start anything, workshop or hackerspace or a conference or whatever you do, it's good to start it with a culture that you want to be a part of. because that's the culture which will persist in time.
Okay, last question.
Okay, since we have talked about getting the word out, I'm here just getting a word out. I am holding a workshop about how to turn your beamers into 3D projector and about how to hack in China. Just right after this lecture, and you will see how I practice those instructions in this great lecture. The place will be in Hardware Hacking Tent, and 13 o'clock it will start. Thanks.
And that's
Yeah, at 1. So like
1 p.m. for Americans, 13 hours for everybody else.
Yeah.
That's Hao, who came here all the way from Shanghai. So, yeah, well, thanks, everyone. I hope you've all been encouraged to try doing your own workshops if you haven't, and keep doing it until you get better and better and better, and not only make your life better, but those around you and the world a better place for everybody.
Absolutely. And also, if you have any further questions, we are going to pretty much just be in the Hardware Hacking Tent for the next week. And find us, like, we're willing to talk about even the boring stuff, the logistics, which are really, really, really important, even though they're boring. But yeah, we'll talk to you in depth about like cost, everything, whatever you want. It's free, open information. So. Okay,
so before you leave, please everyone look below your chairs for garbage that you could collect. Just because then it takes half a minute for all of us instead of half an hour for the angel. So thank you very, very much. Looking forward to building some stuff.
Yeah.